Okay,
So
cool.
we should have some people coming in to join us, and we've got a couple rolling in. Sally, welcome. And just while everyone's starting to come in, might get everyone to head to Slido, slido.com, and punch in the event code Futureproof, and that should take you to a question. Which will tell us where everyone's calling in from tonight. So if everyone can go to slido.com. And we've got 2873. That's great. I don't know where that is, but how about you, Chris? Are you familiar with 2873?
I don't know where that is. No, it must, yeah, I'd be guessing.
Oh, we've had a chat come in. It's in Tottenham, which isn't too far from either of us, Chris.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I'm in Dubbo tonight, and Chris is calling in
from Orange.
From Orange, which is very good. We'll just give everyone a couple more minutes to start piling in, and we'll go from there. And we're now up on Facebook too, which is great. So we'll have a few more joining us on Facebook tonight as well. But in the interest of time, Chris, before we run out of time on the latter end, we might just skip across this first poll and keep going into the next one. So I'd like to know where everyone's calling in from today, whether it's from home or at work, sitting on the tractor. Thought I'd throw that one in. I know many people are just started harvesting, on the run, or other. So we'll see how we go. Only one response, we had 2 in so far, so that's great. Looks as if we may be having some technical difficulty there. We've got a few coming in, but that's okay. How about we will just give it a couple more minutes there. And got some coming in. There's a few more just rolled in. So if you've just joined us, head to slido.com, enter in the hashtag Futureproof, and let us know where you're calling in from at the moment. Are you at home? Are you sitting on the tractor? Are you at work? Are you calling in from somewhere else? Are you on the run? Where are you today? just got a text coming in saying there's a few technical difficulties with that Slido, Chris. So I might not spend any more time on it, and might hand over to you, Chris. So tonight I'm joined by business coach, Chris Morrison. Chris is a business coach who's based in Orange in New South Wales and comes to us with a lifetime of experience in business. Chris goes under the banner name The Farming Coach and has done quite a lot of work with Young Farmer Business Program before, and we really enjoy working with Chris, so we're glad to have him along tonight. And so without any more further ado, Chris, I'll hand over to you so you can have a chat to us about future-proofing our businesses.
Cool. So you're going to stop sharing your screen, is that correct? I'll just go into here.
Stop sharing now.
Yep. Righto. Cool. I'll just get, oops. Let's go here. Okay, is that showing, Tim?
I can't see it just yet, Chris.
Hang on a sec. Righto.
We've got a few people calling in from Facebook, so we might head back to Slido after you've gone through your presentation, Chris. So we'll jump into it though.
Okay, so. All right. Have you stopped sharing, Tim? It's just not letting me share.
Yeah. How about now?
Okay. We just tested this, guys, and now it's not working. Yeah, it won't let me.
Yeah, no doubt, Chris, some of your talk will be on preparation and the importance of preparation. And I thought we had it covered today, and looks like I've just lost Chris out of the webinar. So how about we'll have another crack at Slido and see if we can get Slido back up running again. So I'll just share my screen. And here comes Slido. So let us know where you're calling in from tonight. If you're just joining us, you can head to slido.com and punch in the event code, Futureproof, and let us know where you're joining in from tonight. You've got a couple of people at home, a couple of people other. Cheers, great. So we'll just give that a little bit of time, and we've got Chris back.
Yeah, I'm back in there. Okay.
Which is good. There we go. And now Chris has started sharing his screen, so we'll jump straight back into the presentation.
Cool. Okay. Sorry, I'm just getting organised here, Tim.
All good. We can see your slides now, which is fantastic. Very good.
They're just not queuing for me. Let's go right up here. Okay, now we should be set to go.
Ready to go.
Righto. So thank you, Tim, and sorry for the slight delay. But first of all, it's nice to think that we're doing some of this in Small Business Week in Australia for 2020. It's been a pretty hectic year, but also it's one of my passions to actually assist young farmers identify what the future opportunities are in their business. And with that in mind, I'll give you what I've got for the next 40 minutes or so. Happy to ask questions, but also for those of you on the call, I will be asking you to participate by putting some answers into some of the things we discuss. Now, clearly, when you're in a business or you want to start a business, there are three positions that we usually look at, and sorry, this, I don't know why it's doing this, I first of all want to start by saying what is a business, because there are a lot of people who are self-employed and doing stuff, but we wouldn't technically call it a business, because if you don't turn up, just like most farmers, and you don't do something, then it's not going to produce a result. Let me give you an outside of farming example of that. A lot of people who do an apprenticeship in a trade, and then they think, well, I'm going to work for myself. So they get a ute and they get a business name, and then they go, plying their trade as an electrician, plumber, whatever. However, if they can't go to work because they're unwell or sick, then they won't get paid. And so for all intents and purposes, we look at businesses as being a commercial, profitable business that works without you. And so even in farming, we go, so the show goes on and we still have to earn money. And you see a lot of stories about people who have become unwell or incapacitated or whatever, and have to take time out of their business, but the business still gets picked up and continued with either employees or family members or whatever. So when we're looking at a business, we look at its history. So what's happened in the past, what's going on right now as we speak, so the present, and excuse me, how would you like your business to change into the future? And so these are things that we get people to think about, to go, you can actually do things differently. Just because it's been done that way for the last 100 years doesn't mean you have to do it that way forever. And obviously farming businesses can be quite complex in their structure and in their arrangement, depending on who's involved in the ownership. And there can be intergenerational ownership, and there can be all sorts of structures. For any of you who were lucky enough to go to the Young Farmers Business Seminar in Dubbo and listen to Mark Boris, he said something really, really important, and that's that the most fundamental thing in any business is structure. And so we look at what the current, present and future structure of your business is going to be. So here's the first thing I want you to think about. In business, business owners are all about problem solving. So if business was easy and if farming was easy, everyone would do it. And so one of the things that, and I might just change this, move this here so we can maybe see. But what this slide says, what are the top 5 points of friction in your current business? Now, this is really, what are the things that really annoy you or aggravate you about your business that need solving? So I'm going to give you just a minute or so just to jot down what your top 5 things are. And so what are the things that are not going well in your business that need some solution or some work on them to fix them?
For me, Chris, in my business, it'd have to be time. Would be my number one, I'd reckon. I'm sure there's a lot of other things to consider there, but I know my number one would be time.
Yep, and that's a common one. Is people go, I've got so much to do, but no time to do it. Another common one would be lack of cash. Like, I'd love to build the business, but I don't have the funds.
Yeah.
Probably a third top one was finding good staff or putting good members onto your team.
Yeah, and that can be tough. Well, I can help with the time one if you have some other people to help you get through the hours. But
yeah. Okay, now I might get everybody, so Tim can read them out, is to put your top point of friction in the comment box. I mean chat box. Down the bottom, you'll get a thing that says chat. You can just answer the question in that. And you can also, throughout the presentation, if you want any points of clarification, you can put it in the chat box. Or it might be Q&A. But you can put it in there and Tim will be looking at that and picking it up. So do we have any responses, Tim?
Yeah, communication.
Yeah, big one. Absolutely. Yep.
And that's come through. That's come through a couple of times. So yeah, no surprises there.
Yeah. So for any of you that haven't read my book, I've written a book called Thrive, and it's how to survive in business if you're a young, ambitious farmer. And one of my main chapters in that book is communication, and it also spends a lot of time explaining the difference between genders, like how men and how women communicate. So it's a really critical issue. And so part of those 5 points of friction, we go, who do you need to be in a business? And to be a good, successful business owners, you need to be solution focused and a problem solver. And so, for example, that if it's communication, you go, righto, so which aspect of your communication is not working, or which part of time management are you struggling with? And then identifying a solution and having some strategies that actually have the problem. So here's a really, really interesting tip about business. The best business owners are the people who solve the biggest problems. And so I often say to people who I'm coaching that if you're really frustrated and you know that you always got to be the problem solver, or you always got to be the one that comes up with a solution, see that as a positive, not a negative, because the better you get at solving problems and identifying solutions, the bigger problems you can deal with and the more money you can make. So the next question I want you to respond to, and this, I'm going to tell you why we asked this question. What is the best thing happening to your business right now? And I want you to put the answer in the box so Tim can read some of them out. So what is the best thing happening to you and your business right now? Okay, are you picking up any comments there, Tim?
Yeah. Got opportunity.
Yep.
Coming in as a big one. I've just asked the same question on Facebook, so keeping an eye out there as well. And restocking to keep the drought, keep the business moving, and positive seasonal conditions.
Yep, beautiful. Absolutely. Yeah, what a bumper year in lots of areas. I still see that up in the the northwest area of New South Wales, they could still do with a little bit of rain, but I did get an opportunity to travel out there only 3 weeks ago, and some areas up there absolutely stunning with what's happened with a little bit of rain. But these are really, really interesting. Now, I want to focus on the questions, because part of the communication dilemma in business is, how do you stay optimistic in adversity? And usually we focus on problems, and usually we underestimate what's working. And so that question is deliberate, is what's the best thing happening right now? Because that gives you cause to be optimistic about your future. So if you remember back only 6 months ago, well, let's go 9 months. But sort of 9 months ago, we only just started hearing about COVID-19. 9 months ago, we were still hoping that we might break the drought. And so if we hadn't had the seasonal conditions we've had this year, there'd be a whole heap of problems that we would need to solve. And it's a word of caution. I think that one of the issues about getting lovely rain and improving seasonal conditions and opportunity, forget how bad the drought was. And what problem solvers do and solution-focused farmers do is they actually organise their business to do the most amount of work they can to drought-proof for the future. And whether that's fodder conservation by way of putting grain in silos, or storing more hay, or putting silage underground, or whatever it is, or improving your water infrastructure on a property so that stock don't have to move to the water, and all of those things. But that's certainly in the good times of being really mindful of how painful the drought was, and what was the highest thankless tasks that you had to do. And one of them could have been watering stock, for example. So what a great opportunity to plan and research how you can actually put water where you need to in good times. So the whole thing about being solution focused, and with one of the farming groups that I've been coaching this year, and they said, oh, for God's sake, we're sick of the media telling farmers to be resilient, because we are the most resilient bunch on the earth. And I agree with that. And we said, what comes after resilience? And what really is a key driver to somebody's mental position in farming is hope and opportunity. You know, that things will turn around and things will get better, and there is massive opportunities to take. Okay, so what you need to have a really high level of curiosity and do research and investigate options. So you need to be really curious and inquisitive, and you need to have a plan that plans your pathway to the future of whatever opportunities you see yourself. And then probably the biggest thing that I work on with coaching clients is self-belief, because self-doubt is what gets in people's psyche and prevents them from being optimistic and forward-thinking. And so developing self-belief and a can-do attitude is what we do a lot of work around to try and help people understand to be the best version of themselves. And so all of these things like research and investigate, it's by identifying, you know, your particular patch in agriculture and being really curious about what the potential future in that particular area of agriculture that you want to immerse yourself in. And if you want to swap out of one particular area of agriculture and diversify into another, obviously the research, and then I'll have a slide in a sec that says success leads tracks. And what that means is go and see what other people are doing. And the winner's circle is never full, and that's because not enough people do the planning and the preparation to succeed at what they choose to do. So look at other people in a range of industries, check out what they are doing, and by this it means that you might get some really good ideas about how you can put a system or a strategy in place that isn't typically used in agriculture and farming. And, you know, so it's almost like have a look what other industries are doing. And you know, I'll give you an example outside of farming. I had some young people who in 2020 bought a business in Orange. They bought a gym. And they bought the gym in February, and guess what happened to gyms in March? They were shut down. And so we've looked at that and go, righto, you've bought a business, you've run it for a month, you've paid a heap of money to get into this, and now you have a compulsory shutdown with no income. That sounds like a farmer having multiple years of drought to me, pretty similar. And what we did with that business is we get, righto, well, let's get ready for when we can operate and let's set some goals. And what these particular people have done is they have been able to build and double the income in their business during COVID by just thinking differently and offering different services. Now that they've reopened with some restrictions, they have got to a point where they've been in the business since February 2020, and because of restrictions on size and stuff, their biggest problem is they've got too many members and they can't fit them into their current commercial space. So we've got to look at that business now and go, righto, we need an expansion strategy. And the same thing happens with farmers as they go, we've been really successful, but now we haven't got enough space, or now we haven't got enough stock. And people go, restocking is so expensive. But if you're buying and selling in the same market, you've got to go and say, right, okay, if we need to restock at this level, I'm a great believer, and one of the friends of the Young Farmers Business Program is a fellow called Nigel Kieran. And if you listen to Nigel's philosophy about farming, he talks about how sheep and cattle and goats don't make you money, grass does. And so grass is actually your currency. And so you've got to look at stocking rates and go, how can we utilise the grass we've got available while the grass is there? And so there's some really big challenges there about changing your paradigm about thinking about how to farm in good times and in bad. And there are no right or wrong answers. I'm a great believer in all shades of grey, and what you choose to do is your choice, but just be really decisive about it. And I talk about that by having trigger points of follow successful people, check out what people have done before. And I've got to tell you that when people are trying new things, they've probably got a lot of people watching what they're doing and labelling them as a bit crazy because they're on the cutting edge. And you know, that's not what you would normally do according to history. And so the leading edge farmers are people who don't care so much about what other people think of them. So here's another question, 3 questions here. What excites you about your business, about future opportunities, and about your current results? So this whole thing about being in farming and having the emotion of excitement. Now, one of my clients said to me, I was really, really excited when we generated $50,000 worth of income in a month. He said, I never thought I'd ever have a business that would do that. We're talking about a farming business. And he said, Chris, you wouldn't understand how excited I was because I never thought that was possible. And the good news to that story is 2 years later, he just broke his own personal best record and has had $210,000 worth of income. And so, you know, when you talk about excitement, it's about what excites you. Because if you don't get excited and you're not really, really enthusiastic about what you're doing, then you probably should go and do something else. So let's get some answers about that. What excites you about your business? What excites you about future opportunities? And what excites you about your current results? So share those answers through the question and answers, and we'll get some feedback from Tim on that, just to go so you get a sense of what other people are thinking about what excites them.
The first one in, Chris, is telling us lifestyle and opportunities. What's exciting?
Yeah, absolutely. I think during a pandemic, a really good place to live is in the country on a farm. And a lot of people I've spoken to through agriculture go, our life hasn't changed that much. There's been a few challenges with suppliers and, you know, getting staff and making sure there's enough stuff coming in from China, like chemical and you know, seed availability and things like that. But in a sense, unless you've been homeschooling, I think a lot of people in Victoria were really pleased that schools have gone back, because as well as running your business and becoming the homeschooler has been quite a big issue for lots of people. However, lots of people in agriculture do homeschool and do that independently anyway. So any other feedback there, Tim?
Yeah, we've got another one coming in saying the ability to chase projects and not finances. That's exciting them. Must be someone who's just got out of the startup phase and potentially not chasing their tail as much as they were.
Yeah, cool. All right.
Other ones coming in on Facebook. We've got excited how much they've recently learned and excited about regenerative agriculture. So that's a production-based one. Yep.
So we're going to look at some things about growth. So I've got to preface this by saying that not everything in business should be always growth driven. I've seen some people who have grown their business and all it's done is doubled their problems because they haven't been good problem solvers. So if you've got a really crappy business and you double it, you double your problems. And so you've got to be really careful about growth and go, well, we're ready to grow. And so I just thought I'd share with you the 4 key things that we look at that when we are setting out a plan to grow your business. So obviously we're looking at scale, and you go, if you're already flat out and you want to grow your business, how's that going to work out with your time? If you're going into a diversification, is that something that's going to be a natural fit for your skill set? Acquisitions are often a better way to grow a business than grow them organically. And that's like buy out the competition or buy out the neighbour or buy out, an existing agricultural business or whatever. And then the other thing is that how are you going to fund it? So how do you, the biggest problem with growth strategy is people normally run out of cash because of the costs of growing your business. And so there's a lag time between input costs and return on the investment. And so there's the 4 things about growth is, well, have you got enough time? Is it a diversification that's going to work for you? Can you do it as an acquisition instead of growing it organically? And what about funding it and the costs that it's going to take you? And I love some of the comments coming through, because really we go back to, why the hell are you doing this? So why do you do what you do? And that's the thing where I get that excitement thing and go, shit, I just love growing asparagus, or I just love raising cattle, or you know, I love tractor work, and the whole thing is that you're going to make more money doing what you're actually passionate about. And we all get a choice in business. We arrive at the freedom to choose. So if you're not in a position where you're making your own decisions and you've got that freedom to go, I've actually got the opportunity here to make all the mistakes I can and learn from them, it gives you that freedom of choice. And that identified really early in my life that one of the things I'm not good at is being told what to do. And I don't see that as a negative. I see it as actually a positive contribution I can make to the world, where I've got the freedom to make choices, and I'm self-driven by that. So I said to you before that Mark Boris at the Young Farmers Business Seminar in Dubbo said that every great business has good structure. And what you need in a business, and it's interesting, some of the comments before, but if you're not working to a plan, and that plan should have a 1 year, 3 year and 5 year outcomes, if you're not conducting regular meetings with the people that are involved in the business, and I've got one dairy farmer up in Musselbrook, where he runs the dairy on his own, this young fella, and he schedules regular meetings with himself. It's just the discipline of every week of having a team meeting with himself to check in that he's got everything covered. It's hilarious. And he's doing a really fantastic job. And there's the interesting one which was brought up before. Every great business has clear communication strategies. So how we talk to one another, how we report, how we talk about what we need to get done today, this month, this quarter, and in this financial year. So if you haven't got a 5-year plan, you won't be able to go to the bank and borrow money. And one of the things about borrowing money at the moment, albeit that it's not that easy to deal with the banks because they're going through a major metamorphosis as we speak. However, banks will be really receptive if you've got real clarity around where you're heading over the next 1, 3 to 5 years, and you can prove to them how you intend to make money through your enterprise. And a bank will look at your 5-year plan and go, yep, we've got a really clear vision of what you're trying to do here, and we're happy to risk you and lend the money to you. And if you think about money, I've heard of farmers, very successful farmers, at the moment borrowing large amounts of money to achieve their 5-year and 10-year goals, and their interest rate has been below 2%. And I can't remember in my lifetime money being that cheap. So if you're really organised, you've got really good vision, you know where you're heading, and you've got that documented, there's no reason why you can't actually fund that through borrowings or debt. And all businesses, with very few exceptions, always build the business and grow the business on debt. And so you've got to learn not to be afraid of debt. And as I say, currently money is so cheap, and you just need to have a really good plan to go to the bank with. Okay, so just a couple of tips on business strategies and tactics. You should be measuring everything you do. Imagine if yesterday, Sunday, they didn't keep score. We wouldn't know how good the Australians went for the first time in a long time and drew with the All Blacks 16 all. Now, it's like your business. It's a bit like what's on your scoreboard and what are you measuring to say, yeah, we're doing really well and we're winning. And what you measure, especially if you've got team members, so staff, what you measure will get managed. And so it's all sorts of things in the business that we measure. And one of the things that I'd have to say that farmers generally are not very good at is being really, really specific about their input costs. They know broadly what they are, but really when it gets down to the tin tacks, it's really difficult sometimes to get financial records that show the input costs. And the reason input costs are so important in a business, it actually allows us to help you measure your gross margin on every product and service that you've got and you're doing through your business. And so that's why it's really, really important. So when you build a team in your business, you need to be really, with your team members or your staff, you need to be really hard on their problems or the issues and soft on the person. And this is a strategy we use so that if somebody's not doing their job, it's about, or if they're turning up late, the example of this would be if they can't get out of bed, then we're going to be really tough on the concept or the issue of punctuality. But we're going to say, the person's basically a good person. They just can't get out of bed. But what's going to peeve me off as their supervisor is their lack of punctuality. And I'm going to be saying, come on, we've got to get to this and deal with the problem, which is the punctuality and not the personality. You also, and lots of farmers and lots of small business owners that I work with are really not that keen to deal with confrontation in business. And so they don't nip things in the bud. One way that you can actually improve the performance of your team members and staff in your business is being really clear about your standards. And not just like to really set them out clearly, like your expectations, your standards. And it's a bit like, if you work for us, this is how we expect you to perform and behave. And set some team goals. So what are we actually all trying to achieve here? So one of the keys to a winning team are and a common goal. So if they're just turning up but they've got no idea why they're doing what they're doing, they're not going to be that motivated. And finally, the thing that is most important in any business, where are we going here? Sorry. Oh, I don't know what's going on here. Oh. Okay, there's a slide missing. I might have put it somewhere else. But anyway, I'll talk you through what I thought was my last slide. So the last thing, and I will send this through, Tim, so you get a copy of this, but my last slide reads, consistent execution. So you don't have to ever be the best at doing anything. And raw talent is often a waste of time. We all know people that had natural ability and wasted it. But we advocate that you should just consistently execute your plan and consistently look to do personal bests and that's about competing against yourself, but it also could involve some benchmarking. But the more you learn and the better you get, the more you will earn. So the more you learn, the more you'll earn. And so you've got to see yourself as a sponge when it comes to reading, listening to podcasts, attending field days, and to be involved in constantly learning. Oh, there you go. Well done, Tim. And constantly learning, like being, and you'll remember right up at the front of my slides, I said, be really, really curious, be inquisitive, and you know, be a sponge and take in as much information. But here's the point. There's no point doing all of the books and all of the podcasts and checking out the field days and going to conferences unless you have an action plan and an implementation plan. Because too many people have all the great ideas, but they never get around to actually executing them. And so consistent execution is one thing that we go, let's keep you accountable to actually do what you said you were going to do and get this business into a better shape or into a different shape of whatever it is you want to do into the future. And so the whole point of you know, future-proofing your business is that you've got a really good plan, you've got a really good strategy, and you're executing that, and you're testing and measuring your results to check that you're on track to achieve the results you're looking for. Or if you're not, you recalibrate that. But because you've got so much understanding of your plan and your business, you know, the recalibration is just making slight adjustments when things don't go as you expected them to. So Tim, that's pretty much my lot. I'd be really, really happy to field questions, but I've got to tell you just a couple of things. One is that my experience is that nobody has ever been successful in business without but working hard and having a strong work ethic. And if you're in a startup business or you've taken the business over from your parents or whatever, it takes 7 to 10 years to become instantly successful in business. So you've got to be patient. 17, and people will look at you and go, how lucky you are, but they won't have seen all of the unseen hours that you've put into your business over that 7 to 10 year period. So thanks, mate. And if there's any questions, happy to.
Thanks very much, Chris. That's great. I think I really resonated with just about everything you've said tonight. From the start, you're talking about having a business and not having a job. You know, a lot of people start working for themselves, but they're just working for, you know, they're just, if they're, you know, just like your tradesman example. And I think, you know, a lot of people I see are the same. You know, when they're first starting off farming, if they're starting off as contractors or whatever they're doing, they're only justifying their own wage and not building something that can be without them. A question that's just come in is a bit of a, I suppose, a metaphorical one, but with literal interpretation, is if a business isn't growing, is it dying?
There's a lot of commentary that would say yes. So you've only got two options, to grow or to decline. However, I do have really successful business owners who have businesses where they don't have a growth strategy, but they're still doing really, really well by having a plan to say, we still plan to execute our plan, but we don't want to double our production, or we want to keep our production at the level, and we want to actually concentrate on improving the quality and not the number. And so lots of people say in stud cattle are improving their genetics, but they're not doubling their numbers. So the answer is In business management, they say if you're not growing, you're declining. However, obviously, all businesses, your costs are increasing annually. So to stay in front of the game, if you don't increase your revenues and your costs keep going up, then obviously, yeah, you'll be going backwards in business.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chris. Before we take any more questions, I just want to ask a favour of the audience tonight, those coming in to us on Zoom and the about 20 we've still got on Facebook. Thanks for joining us tonight. And tonight's brought to you by the DPI's Young Farmer Business Program. And as you'll be aware, it's a government organisation, taxpayer funded. And so evaluation is really important to us. Want to know what you thought of tonight in an anonymous and confidential survey. And you can access that survey at slido.com and punching in the hashtag Futureproof as soon as you get there. And it'll take you through a series of about 5 questions, won't take you longer than a couple of minutes, to let us know how you found tonight. And hopefully you enjoyed Chris's presentation as much as we did. So if you missed that one, slido.com. I'll ask you for an event code and put in hashtag Futureproof. And complete the quick survey for us. And you'll be able to do it. It's that simple. You'll be able to keep listening to us at the same time. So we'll keep asking the questions which are coming in. One other question which has come in is, will there be a recording available? And yeah, I think so, Chris. You'll send through the slideshow, and I'll forward that on. And yes, there'll be a recording available. So if you're watching this on Facebook and you're just catching it now, flick us a message on Facebook and we can send that to you. And if you're on Zoom, you should automatically get a copy of the recording. So that's the way it is. And Chris, the question I've got from watching is, you talked about learning things from outside of agriculture. I think a lot of young people, they think of learning things in business. They look at, their older generations. Sheep farmers look to other sheep farmers. Dairy farmers look to other dairy farmers. Could you share an example with us of a lesson you've seen where, I know you shared the gym example, but where you've seen a young farmer learn something from outside business?
Yep. Okay. So a really good example that comes to mind immediately, Tim, is a young dairy farmer who knew nothing about how hay is grown. So they were buying all of their stuff in from a hay grower down on the Murray River, and they were based in Kempsey. And so I put those guys together, and the hay producer started talking to the young dairy farmer about hay, and not all hay is equal, and talked about why you might pay a premium for hay and what it would do to your nutrition. And so then this young guy's thought, well, that's really interesting. I want to learn more about hay. And he didn't know how to read or why you would even get hay tested for protein levels. And then when I spoke to them and said, well, my understanding of milk is that you get paid for literage, but you get a premium for your fat and protein content. So maybe if we change your cow's diet, you'd get more premiums. And he was just blown away because he just thought you just buy hay. And the older hay farmer was educating him to go, no, look, we've got all sorts of different hay, and we can actually customise it to your dairy herd's needs. And so it was just a really good thing going, well, You don't just buy hay as a commodity. Some people who are just hay growers have really good information and knowledge about the changing trends in hay production. So that would be one.
Yeah, that's a great example. Thanks very much for sharing that. Just got questions about 5 different spots people can ask me questions, so I'm just checking all of them on the go. The ones coming on Facebook is, have you got a one habit or a one thing, something that people should do every day in their business that might help them be more successful?
That's a really good question. So we talk about morning rituals and what you do. Mine is I go to the gym every day, but that's only because I'm an older bloke and I just am mindful about keeping strong and flexible. However, if I was to pick one thing that is becoming quite common in all business and in all business literature, and some people will squirm when I say this, but it's quiet time, thinking time, and another name for that is meditation. And it's proven that if you can be involved in, and I'll give you an example of this in a sec, if you can be involved in quiet time and reflective meditating, it will probably help you with your stress and anxiety levels. Now, I'm going to give you a book reference with this. There's a really, really good book. I can't remember the guy who wrote it, but he was an American, and it's called Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics is the name of the book. So Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics. And the reason this guy he had the most public embarrassing breakdown. He was the news anchor for one of the American news channels, and he had a panic attack on screen, on television, in front of 10 million people. And it was the first panic attack he ever had. But let me give you an example of one of my grain growers who's a young guy and how he meditates. He gets a 6-pack of beer, gets on his motorbike and drives to the top of a hill that overlooks his farm, and he sits up there having a beer, sitting on his motorbike, admiring all of the crops that he's created. And that's his quiet place and his quiet time to reflectively look at what he's achieving by, growing all these different cereal crops. So it doesn't matter where you do it or how you do it, but it's just taking time out and being quiet and thinking about your business and the achievements and the results you're getting.
Yeah, that's a really interesting spin on meditation. And I found that book, Chris, was by a guy named Jeff Warren.
Yep.
And I've just put that in the comments on. Yeah. A question that's come through is obviously from someone in a multi-generational business, but asked if the people in charge aren't driving the business, what can someone in the second generation do to try and overcome that?
So, Tim, I missed what are they doing?
Sorry, so the question is if the directors or the people in charge of the business aren't taking charge and driving the business, what can someone else that's passionate and wants to drive, what can someone else do about it? So I'd hazard to guess that might be a multi-generational business with a young farmer coming through talking about the older generation.
Yep. Okay. So here's a couple of things. One is that I absolutely love working with the conflict around succession planning, because I have a belief where you've got to face your enemy. And so it's about dealing with intergenerational issues. But I always say that the world's a really big place, and if you're not enjoying being in your family business, you do have options of not staying. But part of the thing is that a lot of other people in the family business are probably tired and stressed and couldn't think of anything worse than being enthusiastic for another, period of time in the business. And so some of those are the hard life realities, and you've got to go, righto, well, what's the future? Now, a word of warning about families and farming is that I think farming's the only industry I know where we have massive intergenerational transfer of decision-making and ownership. But the problem is that we're facing as younger people is that people are living for much longer. And if you're waiting around to inherit the business or take the business over, then you could be waiting for a long time because people aren't dying as early as they used to. And I think that's a real issue in farming. If you look at most other businesses, even family businesses, it's not automatically thought that you're going to take it over. But if it is an expectation of either you or your family, then the earlier you have the conversation about sharing the responsibility for driving the future of the business, the better. So, but if you've got a situation where your family just won't entertain the thought of that, then you're between a rock and a hard place and you need to make decisions about your own future. But one of the things about all of that is that it's based about open communication. And it's about preserving people's integrity. So if your father or your grandfather's been doing this for 70 years, you want to throw them on the tip heap. It's a bit like, how do you preserve people's integrity for their life work? And so it's a very complicated situation. But if you're in a family where the family are not enthusiastic about changing and discussing, bringing you in as the person with the higher level of passion and enthusiasm for change, you've just got to start a conversation and find out whether it's a dead end or whether there is future potential and what the correct timing of that is. And that's best done with a mediator.
Yeah, it's very true, isn't it? It's all about starting the conversation in a respectful way, and sometimes that can't be done just with family members. It needs an outside party to come in and help,
Yep.
Which is great. We're just mindful of time, but we might just take one more question, and might be something which both of us can contribute an answer towards, Chris, because it's what is a good place for startup agricultural businesses to find more information that might help them in starting up their business.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I am aware of is that I think that there's going to be some pretty good support and grants around for people based on some of the initiatives of rebooting the economy. And I think that there will be some support for younger people to get involved in the future of food and fibre. And so I'd be watching that space about, how the government's going to encourage people to start up businesses. One of the other things I'm really, really keen to look at the development is they're changing the bankruptcy laws for small businesses, which will make it a lot easier for startup businesses to get going. But, you know, as the Young Farmers Business Program has been doing, promoting lots of different speakers, lots of different people, but you just need to attach yourself to somebody or read some books. See, the thing that a lot of people in farming don't do, and the question I'd pose is, what's the last business book you read? And people often go, I haven't ever read one. So it's a bit like, how do you know what business structure you want? How do you, and so to give you Tim, I'll just give a final plug for another book that I think that anyone contemplating a startup business should read, is a book called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And it just talks about the three fundamental roles in the business of, are you a technician, are you a manager, or are you an entrepreneur? And is your business in infancy, growth, or maturity? And so it's a really great book that talks about business structure, and there's a really good anecdotal story in there about a lady who loves baking and making pies, whose name's Rosie, and she takes her passion into business, and once she's done that, she can't stand the sight of another bloody pie. You know, and it talks about technician, manager, entrepreneur, and the different roles that you play in your business to grow it. It's a great starting book for any person that's thinking of a startup business.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. That's a great tip. We've shared a few more things on Facebook in the comments. Some websites that might be helpful. And Chris, a former client of yours, Melissa, from up at Coffs Harbour, has had a good part to start. A good person to listen to is Simon Sinek.
Yeah, absolutely. So Start With Why is his book.
And yeah, Simon has a great book, as Chris has said, Start With Why. And he also does some Facebook and YouTube videos broken down into short clips, which I know can be quite informative for me. And if you're looking for more farming specific stuff, the Young Farmer Business Program website has some great information on there, and you can get that at youngfarmer.nsw.gov.au. And otherwise, we'll put some more stuff in the comments. But I think that wraps up all the questions.
Terrific. Coming
in, Chris. So thank you again for the time tonight, and passing on all the knowledge and wisdom to the young farming audience. Something that we greatly appreciate. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. And good luck to everyone having a go. So terrific.
Very good. Well, until next time, we'll see you later.
Thanks, Tim.